Hello fellow cinephiles, 90s Film Guru here, thanks for joining me today. So I'm continuing on doing my lists of actors that I really like in particular films they're in and the performances that they do give. So today I'll be reviewing my top 5 Kurt Russell films and performances. Now Kurt Russell has been an actor I've liked through the years, but of late have become a real big fan of. Like I've mentioned before with my other reviews of his film like Executive Decision, he has this great ability of playing an everyman but also an action hero, and I think that his career is very varied and he gets to play different variations on those particular characters, and I think he does a really great job, and he's one of my favourite actors now. I love watching him and I like returning to his films from the 90s. Obviously, Death Proof, Tarantino did, he's really great in as well. But there's just something about him I've really enjoyed, and he's been in the business for so long, since he was a kid. His skill as an actor is reflected due to his experiences when he was a kid. First came off the rank, number 5, Stargate. This film came out in 1994 and was directed by Roland Emmerich. It starred Kurt Russell, James Spader, Millie Avtil, Dahl, and a variety of others. And it's really the film that was the template for the very popular Stargate TV series. And I like how they continued on the story from this into that. For those who haven't seen it, which I'd be surprised, it follows the story of Daniel Jackson. He's asked to decode hieroglyphics discovered and confiscated by the military. His findings lead to an activation of a Stargate, a portal that leads to otherworldly realms. And they are transported to a different realm that is Egyptian, and there are Egyptian gods and a variety of things that they interact with and come in contact with in this. And it's just about them exploring this world and the things that unfold as they do that, and the threats that come from the people that inhabit the world. I've long been a fan of this film. I think it's really well done. Roland Emmerich really has made a career out of making films like this. This is definitely one of his better films, of course. I'm still a fan of his later movies, but there's just something really cool about this film and the way it's set. I love how it opens up and it's set in the desert and they find this Stargate and how that works. And I like the introduction of the characters. I think Spader's really great in it, playing Daniel. I think he's really an interesting character, a little quirky, a little odd, much like Spader is, but he's very likable and is a very different character to what you usually see Spader play, which I liked. But I really love Kurt Russell here. He's really believable as this military captain leader who takes this team through and tries to navigate what they find on the other side. He's very strong and capable, and when he's around you feel a bit more safer for the team and the characters in the film, because you feel that no matter what happens, he'll accomplish his goals because he just has that way about him. There is a bit of a tragic story about his son dying and such, and what is the motivation for him, and he feels like life isn't worth living. He's thrust into this world and this environment that he's unfamiliar with, and it just goes to show how far he will go to protect the people that are important, and that due to what happens to him, it causes him to want to fight for his life, and I love that. And he plays it really, really well, and it's a really great character. The film was made for $55 million, went on to take $196.6 million. So, very successful film. And I do remember when it came out and I saw it, we had the old cinema in Dubbo, in this small country town for those who are unaware, and just had this old sort of RSL cinema. We only had one cinema, and they wouldn't have movies on all the time. They may have 1 or 2 a week. And I just remember seeing this and was really blown away by it and thought it was such a wonderful and fun movie. I love the costumes, the look, the feel of the world. And I like all the Egyptian stuff and things that involve around that. And that these Egyptians aren't quite what they seem, and there's a sort of whole history there about how they're possessed by gods and stuff like that, which was really cool. And I like how they did that. I like the masks, and I like the practicality to a lot of it, and the visual effects weren't too bad for the time. Yeah, it's a type of film that reminds me of The Mummy and Indiana Jones and those sort of entertaining, fun movies. It's a little different, a little darker at times, but it kind of is just a fun movie to enjoy, of being transported to a completely different world, a different place, and about how we're shown that world and how that affects us as we go on our journey with it. Definitely worth checking out if you haven't seen it. Number 4, Executive Decision. Now, I'm not going to go into too much detail with this because I've already talked about this film, but this is one of my favourite films, one of my favourite performances by Kurt Russell. I think he's great in it. He plays such a great everyman who's thrust into something he can't quite comprehend in the way he rises to the occasion. And he just keeps going no matter what happens. That's something about Kurt Russell and the performances he gives. His characters are kind of relentless in a way. They keep going no matter what. They have just re-released it on Blu-ray, which is really cool because the DVD version isn't great. And I kind of like that. I like that it's kind of a little bit known, but it's kind of lost, and now it's reappearing, and I love that, and I hope a lot more people see it because of that. And if you want to hear a bit more of my thoughts around this movie, you can check out my review of it. Number 3, Breakdown. I absolutely love this film. I think I love it more than Executive Decision. It's such a simple and engaging film. And once again, Kurt Russell plays an everyman who has to rise to the occasion to become the hero. And I really love that. I love the simplicity of the story. I love it set on a highway and it's through small towns. And I like the kind of antagonists in the movie and what transpires, and how he has to fight for his life and the life of his wife. And I think that's really cool. The film came out in 1997. It was directed by Jonathan Mostow, who went on to do, I'm pretty sure it was Terminator 3, so not great, but this was sort of the springboard, and you can see a lot in this film that would ultimately be used in Terminator 3. Besides Kurt Russell, you have J.T. Walsh, who's really great, great actor, who's fantastic in the movies, an antagonist, and has always been a really colourful character actor. Kathleen Quinlan, who plays Kurt Russell's character's wife, who's really cool in it. She doesn't have a lot of screen time, but there is some cool moments for her, and it is a character he's fighting for. So MC Gainey and a variety of others, and it's just a really engaging and fun film. That is a great little thriller. There's something about little thrillers to me that have simple stories about characters who end up in an environment they don't understand and have to navigate through that. There's just something about that. I guess it's kind of comes back to that story arc it comes back to that character arc. You know, they start in one place, they end up somewhere else. And there's just something really cool about what they do to navigate that, and I think this is a great example of that. It's up there with Cellular and movies like that. There's just a simplicity to it that I really love. I think Kurt Russell's great, and there are some really cool moments for him where he's fighting with his wife, and he's just sort of this ordinary guy, and then when his wife goes missing, he ultimately has to become someone else to find her, and he has to think on his feet. These guys are using him and abusing him and trying to get him to give them the money he doesn't have. But he's also got to think on his feet. He's got to work out what he can do and how he can get away with things and how he can get to his wife before it all goes bad. And this is a really cool scene where they chase him in the car and it ends up going down this hill and he ends up in the river, and they just let it. I think he might be dead, but ultimately he comes back, and he comes back with a vengeance in a way. He isn't John Wick type character, but he's a character that will do what he has to do to save his wife. And the way he goes about it's really cool, and just the interaction with the characters. He's just really great in the film. It's definitely one of my favourite movies due to its simplicity and the way it unfolds. If you haven't seen it, definitely check it out. Number 2, Backdraft. This is not only one of Kurt Russell's best performances, but I think this is one of Ron Howard's best films. I'm not huge on Ron Howard. I feel some of his movies are really great, like this and Ransom and a couple of others. But there's just something about this film that I really connect to, and I think it comes down to the fact that my father was a fireman and he was also a fire investigator. So all that combined, I think there's a connection to this film that I wouldn't usually have due to that fact. To seeing my father involved in those sort of things, that he wanted me to follow in the same track as him and I didn't want to, but there's a connection there. There's something that really draws me in, and it makes me think of my father, and it makes me think of the time we had together, and it makes me think of the work that he did at that time as a fire investigator. It is also fascinating to me. This film came out in 1991, and like I said, it was directed by Ron Howard, and it had a great cast besides Kurt Russell. You had Billy Baldwin, Robert De Niro, Donald Sutherland, Scott Glenn, Jennifer Jason Leigh. Just such a great cast for the time, very 90s, I guess, in a way. And Kurt Russell plays this character that his father dies in a fire when he's young, and he sort of takes on the mantle of his father. He's aggressive as a fireman. He jumps through the door. He only wears a helmet. He doesn't wear masks or anything. He carries an axe. And he tries to live in the job as if, projecting his father and wanting to be him. And then you've got Billy Baldwin's character, who's his brother and who's wanted being a fireman, but Kurt Russell's character doesn't think he has what it takes, and he ultimately finds his way into fire investigation. And the whole film is really about what it is to be a fireman, and also that there's a sort of a serial killer, a serial arsonist who's burning down buildings and killing people, and the killer's doing it for whatever reason. It's about how these two brothers have to work together to work out what's going on, and it has a really great ending, and I think Kurt's great in it. And it really is a film that shows you that fire has a life of its own. It's unpredictable, you never know what it's going to do. And like the characters in the film, it engulfs everything around it. Like these characters are so ingrained in the way they were brought up and who they are as people now, and the impact that their father had on them, and just it engulfs everything about who they are, and they sort of have to work it out. But Kurt Russell is in true hero mode here. He isn't the everyman in a way. He seems much more like a superhero, like Superman, or a character that rises to the occasion. He's just really cool in it and badass, and it shows off a different side of him compared to the other two films I just previously mentioned, because he's in action mode. He's the true hero of the piece. He has some great scenes. I think Glenn Scott's really good, Billy Baldwin's great, and Donald Sutherland's really great. He has his one particular scene where he's a serial arsonist himself, and he starts talking about the fire, and his interaction with De Niro and Billy Baldwin's really great. But it's Kurt Russell that really shines here. I like the practicality with the fire, the way they sort of did it. There isn't too many visual effects, which is really cool. So it kind of puts you in the realm of that. Whether you're seeing the characters going into a burning building, whether you're looking through a mask as they look at what's happening and going on, or if they put you right in the middle of it, put you in it, and you experience it. Not many films do that, where they make you experience that. And I think Ron Howard's had a number of films that do that, especially this and probably Apollo 13, where they really put you in there and they make you part of it. It's like you're experiencing it as the characters experience it. And I think he does a wonderful job in this film. There is a lot of heart and depth to the movie. It isn't just firefighting, it's about the impact that they have on people's lives when their work is their whole world. And it's like Kurt Russell's character really wants to be his father. And the only way he can do that is be this sort of aggressive fireman. But he doesn't have the emotional depth, I guess, like his father might have. And there's a disconnect there, but it's like feels like he has to follow in his father's footsteps. And that's kind of how I felt with my father. He was a man of few words, and when he did talk, he sort of was very stern with the way he spoke. And I think there was a distance between us that closed a bit later, towards the later end of his life, but there's something that connected us there, and old movies do that. But there's just something like that, and I felt I had to follow his footsteps, and he wanted me to be a fireman, and I didn't want to be. At first I did want to be, but then I chose not to be. And the same as he was a mechanic, and he wanted me to be a mechanic. So there's all these things that connect that, and it connect the driving force for Kurt Russell's character, and why I connect to that, and the relationship he had with his father we didn't see, and only when they were kids, and how that small thing has had a huge impact on his life. It's just a really, really well done film. If you like films about fire or firefighters, this is definitely worth checking out if you haven't seen it. Before I get to my number one, there are some honourable mentions, or films that I still like that some people may not. Tango and Cash, I think Kurt Russell's great in that. It's a little silly and over-the-top action film, but he's really cool in it, and I like the relationship he has with Sylvester Stallone. And he's just kind of a fun sort of character that reminds me a lot of Riggs from Lethal Weapon. Escape from LA. Now, I know a lot of people don't like this film. The visual effects do not hold up. And I do like the original film, Escape from New York, and this film does is a very similar storyline of why Snake Plissken's goes back to the city, this time LA, and it's sort of carbon copy a little bit, but it's a very fun film. And when I came into John Carpenter's movies, this was the first one I saw in the Escape movies. So I didn't have a frame of reference. This was just the one that I liked the most, and I remember seeing it on VHS and picking up at the video store. So there's some connection there for me. And I just kind of like the fun aspect to it. I like the other characters that are in it. I like to see Kurt Russell returning to this Snake Plissken's character, this very tough hero-esque character. And this is another film where he plays a hero, and I really love what he does in this movie. It isn't John Carpenter's strongest, but it is definitely a fun movie I enjoy. And there's also the great Captain Ron with Kurt Russell and Martin Short. And it's just a fun, entertaining movie that's over the top. And Kurt Russell's quite fun in it. And even John Carpenter, who worked with Kurt Russell quite a lot, makes fun of how Captain Ron's his best performance, and I like that. So there's a really sort of fun aspect to it. So all of those films are worth checking out if you like Kurt Russell, because they're kind of fun. So number one, my number one Kurt Russell film is Tombstone. Of course, I can't go past this as one of his great performances, and all the behind the scenes shit that was going on with the different directors and how he kind of took charge, they say, and kept everything together and directed himself. I don't know how true that is. Even he said he didn't really direct it, but he kept the morale up and really kept the film going and kept it really on track, and crafted probably one of the best westerns to ever come out. And I really love that about the film. And along with Kurt Russell, you've got Sam Elliott, you've got Bill Paxton, Michael Biehn, and of course Val Kilmer. What a performance he gives as Doc Holliday. One of his best performances of all time. It's a masterclass in acting. He really understood the character, and I really like the interaction between him and Kurt Russell's Wyatt Earp. Entertaining but visceral and engaging sort of western. Now, they would go on to make another film called Wyatt Earp, which would be much more of a dramatic piece and showing all Wyatt Earp's life, and also giving him this sort of mythical aspect. But I don't think it's as fun as this film. It's another example of when they release one film and then they released another one's a bit different. I think this is a much more easier, engaging film than the Wyatt Earp movie. And I just really love the performances, especially from Kurt Russell and Val Kilmer. The film came out in 1993 and really tells the story of Wyatt Earp, his brothers, and his friendship with Doc Holliday, and the shootout at the OK Corral and the impact that had on his family, and how he tried to do the right thing no matter what. And that's kind of what makes him. He's an interesting character here because he is a little bit of an everyman, but he's also a hero. It's combining both. It's the first real role that you see him do both in. And I think he's great in the movie. He really suits the character. He feels like an old school Western actor, and I think he does such a great job in the movie. Star Sam Elliott. Those two guys really suit the West. Both been involved in Westerns, and when they do Westerns, it really feels like they're part of that world, and I love that. There's just something really cool about it, and Kurt Russell's just fantastic in it. He's definitely one of my favourite actors of all time, much more now than he used to be, and I love everything he does, and I love returning to these great films he's done, and looking at him as a man and as an actor who has the great ability to play, like I keep mentioning, a hero and an everyman. Anyway, that's my list. So tell me in the comments below what you think, if you agree, disagree, and do check out those other movies I did mention. Anyway, that's all from me today. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please subscribe down the bottom. Follow me on Letterboxd and Facebook. Otherwise, until next time, enjoy the movies.